So, is the 2023 rookie class good? Yes, the 2023 rookie class is very good. So since 2000, on average, a rookie class has produced at least 2 players with at least 2 seasons finishing inside the top 12 in PPR scoring every single year. That's 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends, on average. Inside the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, it gets a little less. It's like 1.6, 1.7. It goes slightly less than 2, but essentially you can expect about 2 on an average rookie class at every position. But the average lies. We know this. The fallacy of the average, we know that's not true, right? We haven't had a tight end to fit that description with at least 2 seasons finishing inside the top 12 at their position since 2019, I want to say. And that's not too unusual. The tight end position has fewer classes where there's at least 1, even. For example, 2014 and 15, we have back-to-back years without any tight ends having 2 seasons finishing inside the top 12. And in fact, in 2012, you also have no tight ends that were drafted that fit that description. Also, no wide receiver since 2015, I want to say, has produced 2 top 12 seasons from any rookie class. Wait, I know what I've forgotten. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, and Jalen Waddle. That was probably the best wide receiver class since 2014. I didn't forget. I just count things and then go look. No. 2021 has not produced 2 wide receivers with at least 2 top 12 seasons yet. It's probably going to. Amon-Ra wasn't in the top 12 in his rookie season, you might remember, even if he finished the stretch as a top 12 wide receiver. Waddle technically finished just outside the top 12 in PPR scoring, half-point PPR, and standard scoring last year, but he did finish inside the top 12 last year. So right now, there's only Jamar Chase with 2 top 12 seasons, and that's 1 player with 2 top 12 seasons from 2021, and that's consistent every year back to 2015. Probably don't believe that, so let's run through the names, shall we, a little bit. 2000, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. Justin Jefferson fits the description of having 2 top 12 seasons. CeeDee Lamb is a late 3rd year career breakout, finishing inside the top 12 in 2022. So he's only got 1, and we called it. 2019, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and Deebo Samuels. In fact, I think that's Deontay Johnson class as well. That's a fairly deep class as well. But AJ Brown is the only one with 2 top 12 seasons on his resume. Deebo Samuel has 1 and some injury seasons. DK, also an injury problem. He has 1 top 12 season. 2018. Like I was just... How about 2018? No. Calvin Ridley has 1 top 12 season. No other players have a top 12 season at the wide receiver position from 2018. DJ Moore has consistently racked up a lot of top 24 seasons, but not top 12. Maybe because of touchdowns, maybe because of quarterback. The debate rages on. 2017? 2017 was a really good class. Juju, favorite wide receiver from the class, top scoring in my model, was not the highest drafted that year. No, he's got 1 top 12 season, which happened in his 2nd year, and the rest has been baffling, I want to say. Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp must have 2 top 12 seasons, and he does. So that's 1 wide receiver from the 2018 class with a top 12 season. Chris Godwin has 1 and some injury problems, and then not having a Tom Brady problem in a couple years as well, I guess. But he has his top 12 season without Tom Brady. Kenny Golladay has a top 12 season. Technically, an overall points scored, according to the data I've collected between weeks 1 and 16. In PPR scoring, just the 1, though. How about 2016? That's even funnier. Laquan Treadwell's here, right? Must have a player. Yeah, Michael Thomas has 2 top 12 seasons or more. Tyler Boyd has all the top 24 seasons you could want. Will Fuller never really got there, and also injuries, and then never came back to the league. Well, more injuries. You get the idea. Since 2015, we've had plenty of good wide receivers, but no player with 2 top 12 seasons, or at least Never more than one player with 2 top 12 seasons. Before that, it was fairly common occurrence, which is why the average is at 2 or slightly below 2 if you only look at players drafted within the first 3 rounds. Remember the Brandon Ayuk hype, if you don't believe me? Brandon Ayuk, 21 points per game between week 8 and week 15, bro. He's great. I throw that in just because you're hearing a lot of those split takes right now on Christian Watson and even Treylon Burks. And Brandon Ayuk and other lessons from these past draft classes are why we remain cautious. That's not the point of the video. We're meant to talk about whether 2023 is a good rookie class. My point here isn't to point out that clairvoyant fantasy analysts currently convincing you of things that have signal that don't actually have signal, but are interesting data points if you want to put together a compelling picture of what might be in a player's range of outcomes for the future, have been baiting the exact same trap for about 7 years now. It's kind of an aside, I guess. Probably more useful avenue of discussion, but we're interested in what we're interested in. What does that mean is actually my point. 2017 is honestly probably hands down what I think is the best overall draft class since I've been playing fantasy football, at least in the last 10 years. 2014 was great for wide receivers, 2017 was good for running backs, but it was also really great for wide receivers, as I just mentioned a little bit. We had Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, all of which were second-round draft picks in a lot of rookie drafts because it was so running back heavy, and because misses in a draft class matter. Several players in the earlier ADP of 2017 rookie class were busts, or at least very, very light, soft hits. Misses matter. Do misses matter? Obviously. Ask Sky Moore drafters whether the 2022 was a good rookie year for them. Or Drake London drafters. Great through the first half, kind of disappointing through the second half. I still think it was overall positive, but do they think it was a great rookie class for their Dynasty team? Treylon Burks, my wide receiver 1 this year. I think he had a positive season overall, but it definitely didn't feel like a great rookie class or a great rookie experience if you drafted him, as I did in some leagues this year. So was 2022 good? Yes, it was a very good year. So what do we mean? I think what we mean is 2023 better than 2022? I think that's what it means. Like, we've just had so many good players in their first year. This year's not going to produce that many, which is actually a fair statement because we normally don't get at least 4. There's at least 4 wide receivers plus 1 that was injured all year. That's an incredible season. But the 2015 to 2022 dry spot and having 2 top 12 seasons should point out to you that doesn't mean just good things follow from that every time. Because we have injuries, and we have context, and we have more things to consider than whether it was good or bad and that binary decision. In 2017, we had Corey Davis as a wide receiver 1 by consensus, a marginal consensus. ADP was essentially split that year. I know because we spent a lot of time talking about it. The other first-round wide receiver drafted in that year was Mike Williams. And the way his NFL career has played out, essentially we know, yeah, he's good, but he has struggled with other injuries, and he's never quite hit that long-term upside through a season. But it's definitely still good. And those guys were going earlier because they were first-round draft picks, then those second-round hits. And Cooper Kupp, who is the one player who has 2 top 12 seasons. So was 2017 a good draft class? So here's how I've come to think about whether a class is good or bad. Because I don't mean to mock the idea that we have to evaluate this draft class. If it's good or bad has meaning, but what do we mean by it is actually important. So here's how I think of it. Every draft class has good players. We get some draft classes right, and we get some draft classes more right than others. And it's worth pointing out that if we go back a little bit further, 2013 was thought to be a bad wide receiver class even after the first year. The wide receiver 1 in that class, DeAndre Hopkins, drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, had a worse rookie season than Keenan Allen being drafted in the 3rd round. Not a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick. I don't know why I said 3rd round pick. It's definitely a 4th round pick. I know because I put him on my later drafted hit list. Like, undrafted free agents matter, bro. So the too long didn't read version of how I think about whether a class is good or bad is how easy is it to identify who is going to be good and bad? And are there values in it from a fantasy perspective that other people might disagree with or that you might get second round value on because they're overthinking it because they don't bother to go and look at what's happened. Instead, they try and guess how they feel about what's going to happen. I think that's what they do anyway. Yeah, too long didn't read. The 2023 is a good class. In fact, even though 2022 definitely had more hits earlier, more value rises, I think 2023 is going to be a better class than 2022. 2023 is going to have better hits. The running back one in this class is going to dominate the Dynasty and Fantasy at least for a couple of years. Like, he's really good. There are at least 6 prospects in the 2023 class I think will be drafted in any draft class's first 6 picks since 2000. And that's not common. So from my perspective, a good class is every class. The future is unknown. Injuries and weird coaching decisions are random variables we cannot know or control for. So don't try. In fact, I think because of the depth of 2022, they would have struggled to crack the top 6 in most draft classes, whereas the top 6 this year would have cracked the top 6 in most draft classes. They are easier to identify, they have fewer questions, and the questions that we do typically ask are relatively easy to answer this year. As an example, to stop talking in hypotheticals or vagaries, JSN is clearly the most productive wide receiver from this draft class, judged by most contexts. Most models that I know are probably going to like JSN a lot, unless they don't account for the way players produce, because if you're looking for the Jamar Chase in this year, you are not going to like this draft class, because everyone with a Jamar Chase type usage profile in college isn't necessarily bad, but they are nowhere near the prospect Jamar Chase was. For example, in that high ADA, low slot rate usage profile, just that simple way of looking at their profile, you do have hits like Chris Olave, you do have hits like Jamar Chase. You also have CeeDee Lamb, who's pretty good, and Devontae Smith, who everyone finally likes as much as they should. T. Higgins fits into that profile as well. DK Metcalf, he fits that type as well. Let's look at the other type of player, the exact opposite type of player. High slot usage and lower ADOT, or an ADOT below 10. Rondale Moore has been a recent hit, and Garrett Wilson was more of that type of hit, but he actually didn't have a slot rate over 50%. Jacoby Myers, Christian Kirk, they're all lower level hits, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, top 12 wide receiver this year. He had a slot usage over 50%, but he did have a higher ADOT as well. Is there anyone I could think of that measures up to Jamar Chase? Cooper Kupp? Justin Jefferson? How about A.J. Brown? The idea that a type of wide receiver is what you're looking for in fantasy is stupid. Great fantasy wide receivers, or just great wide receivers, can work in any area of the field, and that's true in fantasy as well. What other questions do we know to ask? How about players with only 1 year of history? They only played less than 8 games or less than 6 games or whatever the nerd, like I like to use 8, others might use none or might use 3, I don't know. Only 1 season of good production. Well, Rondale Moore, since I just mentioned him, he had 1 year of good production, and it made me hum and har over him a lot, especially given his usage profile, and the fact that 1 good season was his first season when he was 18 years old. Are there any other examples of that? I asked myself at the time, and the answer was yes. And all the ones that were very good in that 1 season went on to do well if that 1 good season was at 20 years or younger. This is slightly akin to breakout age. This year we have Cedric Tillman and also Julian Fleming. Both have 1 good year, over 8 games played, with relatively good production to the situation they were playing in, the role, the usage profile, and age relative production, but both of them did well at age 21 or older. Most of those players work out to be busts, and that's co-opting some of the breakout edge signal a lot of people like to talk about. However, the other players on that list who had a good season, but only 1 season, but it was under 20 years old, and they were drafted reasonably, and everything else fell into place as well. Jamar Chase is on that list. So, does JSN's profile this year, only having 1 year, make me uncomfortable? Yes. But it was also when he was 19 years old. It was also outproducing Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson on the same team, so no. Again, this class has great profiles in it and a slightly different role than a lot of people like to look for, I think. And they're phenomenal production profiles as well. And the questions I know to ask, the questions I know other people have asked, and I've made a note of because they work and have value and increase our accuracy in getting the rookies right or wrong, outside of reality is always going to disagree with, something that we make in Excel, are easier to answer. They have answers, they have examples, they have a history, it's happened before. The things we don't know remain the same. We don't know the future, we don't know what injuries are going to concern, we don't know landing spots, and we don't know what decisions are going to be made by real people in the real world. But all of that is true of every draft class every year, at this time of year, at least. We don't know draft capital, that's the other thing. The most important. Yeah, the 2023 is actually a great draft class, especially for fantasy, because people are starting to panic on it. And what I would say, if there's anyone in your league who likes that type of Jamar Chase profile and doesn't find it, so doesn't like this class, then buy top 6 picks in your rookie draft this year. Also note anyone in your league who's actually doing that. Because at this point in Dynasty, the best way of playing is playing with your friends, not trying to pretend you're actually a fictional fantasy GM. If they don't like the 2023 class, I think they're fooling themselves. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thanks very much for checking out the video, and I will see you in the next one.